Hello, this is CK7, and we are back for a new round of commentary. I've decided I will do the Disney Villain Wars that I've been promising you all guys by Cult of Kefka. Again, just like with the movie Villain Wars, I've decided I'll just do it right through my video library since I have the first 4 rounds uploaded already. And instead of doing 1 round per commentary, I've decided since the rounds in part 1 are fairly short, I've decided for this first commentary, I will do the first 4 rounds of the series, see how that goes. I was hoping to do the commentary for the Disney Heroes vs. Villains round 9 and the non-Disney Villain Tournament round 8, but I'm just going to wait till part 2 of both those series come out to do the commentary. So yeah, I guess you could say this is sort of an early Christmas present for you, Cult of Kefka. My commentary finally begun for the series. And I will say, the Disney Villain Wars has become in my top 5 favorite of the villain tournaments. My number 1 being Disney vs. non-Disney villains. Second is the Disney Heroes vs. Villains. Third is the non-Disney Villain Tournament. The 4th is probably this series, the Disney Villain Wars, and my 5th favorite is the movie Villain Wars. I think that's how it is. Actually, now that I think about it, the movie Villain Wars is probably my 4th favorite. You know what? Let's just say that the movie Villain Wars and the Disney Villain Wars are tied with each other at the 4th spot. So, yeah, with that taken care of, let's go ahead and get started with round 1. So we start off with Hades versus Dr. Facilier. Which, I will say, this fight is kind of similar to the, to how Disney vs. non-Disney villains began. Of course, I bet a lot of people told you this. You know, Hades goes to find someone to ally with to help him conquer Mount Olympus and all, but they neglect his offer. You know, kind of like with Hexus and all that. But this is still a good fight, and I think it's interesting that you have Hades and Facilier be rivals, since in Disney vs. non-Disney villains they are allies. But I guess that goes to show that they are 2 very similar villains that can make either great allies or great enemies. And just like with Hexus, Facilier wins and tosses Hades into the underworld. Well, not the underworld, but the river Styx. He tries to get up, but Dr. Facilier steps on his fingers, making him fall down. And the rivalry between the 2 begins. Now we have Ursula versus Captain Hook. So Ursula goes to claim the Triton, but Captain Hook challenges her into a fight, which I say is a very big mistake. Interesting though, and I'm sure History Buff already brought this up in his commentary, that you used footage of Captain Hook from the sequel instead of the first movie to do, of course, first fight, which is interesting. This is still pretty well edited, and of course it does make sense, because, you know, the sequel, there's a giant octopus, and Ursula is well, at least partly octopus, something like that. And I can tell you're still keeping the bumbling part of Hook, besides the awesome part of him, that I think we'll see later on in this series. So yeah, Ursula wins. Now we have Scar versus McLeach, which, this fight did surprise me that it's only round 1, and you had Scar, who is probably one of the most popular Disney villains, get killed by McLeach, who is probably one of the most underrated Disney villains. At least one of, somewhere in the top 10 most underrated. So it did really surprise me. But though, I am glad that McLeach gets more action, because I think he is a very underrated Disney villain. And I thought The Rescuers Down Under was a really good Disney film. So yeah, Scar wakes up and sees Joanna, and then McLeach with his large gun. By the way, what you do here with the gun, have, you know, the gun point at Scar, that was really cool. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has done... Well, okay, I think Man Woo and Windman used it a couple times in their war. And McLeach wins. Now we have Queen Grimhild versus Lady Tremaine. And again, just like with the Cat and Hook Ursula fight, you use... It's Lady Tremaine's first appearance in the war, and you're already using the sequel footage instead of her footage from the first film, Cinderella film. Which, I mean, of course, yeah, in the first Cinderella movie, she doesn't really do that much. So, yeah, it does make sense that you already go to the third film, but it's funny, because she already has her magical wand, whereas in Disney vs. Non-Villains and in Disney Heroes vs. Villains, it explains how she gets her wand. And this fight is pretty similar to the Queen Grimhild versus Rasputin fight in Disney vs. Non-Villains, where, you know what I mean. I think he already went over this. And of course, we just saw Diablo witnessing the whole thing. And yeah, Tremaine wins. And finally, we have Ratigan versus the Jack-in-the-Box from Fantasia 2000. Now, this was an interesting fight, although, like History will point out, you have an animated versus a CGI villain type fight, kind of. And it's nice to see the Jack-in-the-Box, because, I mean, it's good to see that you're using villains that have not been used in Disney vs. Non-Villains or any other tournament. Which is what I like about this series. You use quite a few obscure villains. I mean, that's pretty good edited right there. And yeah, of course, Ratigan wins. And a pretty gruesome death with the Jack-in-the-Box. And we go to... Well, I think this is still part of the fight, but I guess, according to your description, this is part of the epilogue. So yeah, Facilier is now ruler of the underworld. And Diablo goes to tell Maleficent about the fight's going on, but someone turns him into stone. And now we go to the real epilogue. It's kind of taking a while here. Okay, here we go. Nice use of Star Wars music. So yeah, Maleficent is with her goons and all. And I guess she's becoming aware of the war. And of course she found out that her pet crow has been turned to stone by someone. And she gets an unexpected visitor. And it's the Horned King. And I noticed you have Diablo in that scene, which we know he's turned to stone, but I guess you did not have the close-up tool. Yeah, you had the close-up tool, I think. You've been using it in parts of the war, I think. I don't know. But yeah, that just foreshadows a rivalry between Maleficent and the Horned King. Elsewhere, in the Palace of Justice, Judge Claude Frollo is becoming aware of the war, but gets an unexpected visitor from Dr. Facilier, where he gives an offer to Frollo, but an offer that Frollo will regret later on. You know, of all Disney villains, I think Judge Frollo is probably one of the most complex of them, because, yeah, he's the villain of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but he sees himself as trying to, you know, do good for the people of Paris and all. Even though what he did was evil, you know, like murdering the innocent and all that stuff, and killing the gypsies. So yeah, that was round one, and I've clicked on the play button to play all the videos in one video. So, yeah, so this should automatically go to round 2. Here we go. Maleficent versus the Horned King. So the Horned King unleashes his plan, the Cauldron Born, and decides to have him attack Maleficent. Also, I noticed you're using the Kraken music from Pirates of the Caribbean. I notice a lot of these tournaments are using the Kraken music because Manwu and Windman used part of it in Part 2, Round 8 of their series, and Sauna Shadow just used it in Part 1 of Round 8 of the non-Disney World tournament. And it was used in Round 1 in the Movie Villain Wars by Zero the Killer. And now you're using it here in Round 2. And Maleficent wins and the Horned King just leaves. Elsewhere, Queen Nerissa is noticing this. Good to see she's getting a role, because she so far hasn't had much of an impact in the Disney vs. non-Disney Villain series. Even though I still have not seen Enchanted, believe it or not, folks. But I hear that she's a pretty interesting villain and all. But, alright, anyway, now we have Prince John versus Pete. So, at Prince John's castle, Prince John fires Pete for not able to help him capture Robin Hood and all. And this makes Pete very unhappy. And he gets his army of weasels to attack the Cowardly King. Or, not king, prince, but you know what I mean. Just kind of watching this right now. You know, the thing is, Cult of Kefka, with your series and with Manwu, Windman, and Ace Makilio Face. So y'all have been so far the only footage of Pete that y'all have been using is mostly the Prince and the Pauper and the Three Musketeers. I mean, you Cult of Kefka, you used Pete from Mickey's Christmas Carol and eventually used Kingdom Hearts. But I've been thinking lately about what other areas of Pete you can use footage of in case you need more footage. Like, you can use him from House of Mouse. He has... It's questionable, but you can use footage from a Goofy movie or a Goof Troop, even though he's not really a villain in those areas, but still. And one other thing that I've thought of. What about using footage of him from Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas? If anyone y'all remember that one, there's Pete, he's in 2 of the 3 stories. The 3rd story, The Gift of Magi, with Mickey and Minnie, he has some footage in there. Like, there's a scene where he gets his rear end on fire, and there's an explosion and stuff. I'm just saying, I'm surprised no one's used that scene yet. I'm just saying, maybe you could use that scene eventually for something later on, if you need more Pete footage. Because he is a classic Disney villain, and I think he does deserve more credit than he bores. And now we have the Queen of Hearts versus Yzma. Now this fight kind of surprised me. I was actually expecting Yzma to win, because the Queen of Hearts, even though she's a pretty popular Disney villain, she is probably one of the most dull Disney villains. I mean, I know History Buff already went over this, but I'm just saying, she is not exactly that interesting of a character. Because all she ever does is scream and yell and scream and yell. So basically, yeah, the Queen of Hearts puts Yzma on trial for using magic and stuff, I think. But Yzma's whip up a potion for her. But this ultimately backfires her, which I love this fight for this reason. Even though I was kind of hoping Yzma would win, it's still fun. It's very humorous how you ended it. And she turns into a kitten. And so the Queen of Hearts gets a part in the war. And here we have the fight made by Seventh the Windman, or actually was inspired by him, I think. The Big Bad Wolf versus Brer Fox. Which this surprised me a lot, because you're using 2 very obscure villains that so far has not appeared in Disney vs. non-Disney villains. Which I kind of hope, I hope they appear eventually, because they're both classics. Because the Big Bad Wolf, he is from the 3 Little Pig cartoons from the 30s. And Brer Fox, of course, is from Song of the South. You know, interesting thing, even though Song of the South is not banned, I remember, you see, I live in Jasper, Georgia, in the United States, and me and my family, we go to Blue Ridge every now and then to look at the stores and stuff in the area. And I remember there was a couple stores that was selling Song of the South on DVD, but they were not licensed by Disney. So I guess you can get Song of the South in America, but as long as Disney doesn't license it. I think that's what it is. So yeah. But it is a shame that Song of the South is somewhat banned, because I think it's a classic film, although it's been a while since I've seen it. I think I've seen it. But come on, I mean, you know, it has Brer Rabbit, one of the most iconic Disney characters, and it also has the song Zippity Doo Dah, which is a classic Disney song. It's actually one of my favorites when I was a kid. But this is a pretty well edited fight, because, yeah, right there, where the wolf zaps the bees that Brer Fox. And finally we have Gaston versus Forte. So Frollo recruits Gaston, and I guess sends him to deal with the giant pipe organ Forte. Which, at first when I heard this was going to be one of the fights, I kind of thought it was kind of cheating, because... But then when I think about it again, it's not exactly cheating, because yeah, they're both from Beauty and the Beast films, but they're two different films, so it still counts. It doesn't count as cheating and all. And of course, yeah, Forte. Known for doing the... can't talk right now. Tim Curry does him. Of course, we'll see more somewhat of Tim Curry later on. You know, the thing... I still can't talk today. You know, Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas, I know a lot of people don't seem to like it too much, but I thought it was okay. I mean, I have it on VHS. But you know, it is kind of confusing because... it's where it takes place. I mean, I understand it takes place in somewhere in between Beauty and the Beast, somewhere in the movie. Like, it states that it takes place right after Beast saves Belle from the wolves, but I don't know. Part of it still kind of confused me. Maybe that's why a lot of people don't like it too much. It's just where it takes place, it just confuses them. But I thought it was okay. I mean, some of the songs were okay, and of course, you got Forte, voiced by Tim Curry. That's always awesome. And it is... I think it's an okay Christmas special and all. I haven't even watched it yet, and it's Christmas. It's already Christmas Eve right now. But anyway, I mean, I guess that's the other thing. Some of the Disney mid-quills they make aren't that good, but I think the only Disney mid-quill that I think is okay, story-wise, is Bambi 2. Because the original Bambi movie, what they did, the transition between Bambi's mother's death and then to the lovebirds, if you know what I mean, did not make a lot of sense to me as a kid. But now that they made Bambi 2 to fill in that missing piece of the puzzle, it made more sense. So, that's why I think Bambi 2 is okay. Okay, and this is where the music of the Kraken gets really epic. And of course, the music is perfect because, you know, Forte is a pipe organ. It sounds like pipe organ music what's going on. Gaston wins. Douchebag. Frollo is pleased with this, and I guess and elsewhere, an evil Arabian sorcerer gets ready for the battle. Now we go to the epilogue for this round. Alright, so on Planet Z, Emperor Zurg has the Unimind. And is aware of the upcoming war between all the Disney villains. You know, it is interesting that you have Zurg already in the anime realm and not, you know, originally from the CGI realm, but then again, that would be way too similar to Disney versus non-Disney villains. You know, it's funny, Zurg, he's one of those villains that can be intimidating, but at the same time, he's actually one of those comical villains, because he can be funny a lot of times. And elsewhere, all the villains are getting ready for battle. The Horned King arises the Cauldron Born through his cauldron. Shan Yu gets all the Huns. Gaston has the Angry Villagers. And Hades rises from the River Styx and plans to get revenge on Dr. Facilier. The Queen of Hearts has her card soldiers. Prince John and his army. John Silver and his pirate crew. And Facilier, now ruler of the underworld, gets ready for his plans. So yeah, this was an epic round right here. This is where things are going to get real. Well, of course they get more real later on, but you know what I mean. Now for round 3. And nice, you're using the Burly Brawl music. So we start with Jafar versus Shan Yu. Frollo hires Shan Yu, just like in Disney vs. Jones, and sends him to Agrabah to attack Jafar, I guess, or something like that. Jafar hears about this, and of course Iago's freaking out. But Jafar has a plan that Shan Yu and the Huns will not expect. So he uses the genie to grant his first wish. You know, this fight is kind of similar to both Jafar vs. Zigzag and Shan Yu vs. Snow Queen, which were both in round 3 of Disney vs. Nightmare. And ironically, this is round 3 of your series, so yeah. That's what's so interesting. Now we have Zerg versus Scroop. So John Silver arrives at Zerg's place. However, Scroop does not like the looks of Zerg and challenges him to a fight, kind of like when he challenged Thrax. Of course, Scroop should know better than try to challenge anyone, since he has not that much footage, and so yeah. And Zerg seems like he has to do everything himself. Or Scroop, he can never get a break in these wars, can he? Now we have Ratcliffe versus Ursula. So it seems that Prince John and Ratcliffe are allies, or something like that. So Ratcliffe hears that Ursula is out in a muck, and he goes out to take care of the Sea Witch himself. Now this fight was pretty well edited, I will say. And it does make sense, because, you know, Ratcliffe is out on the sea. Wait, John Smith, what are you doing here? You're a good guy, you're not supposed to be in a villain's tournament. And of course, we saw this coming. Ratcliffe just jabs the ship into Ursula's stomach. That's the end of Ursula. At least for now, because I believe she returns in part 2. And someone gets a hold of the Titan. Now we have Shere Khan versus Clayton. Ever since McLeach captured Scar, Clayton is jealous and wants to see if he can beat McLeach in his game by capturing the much larger Big Cat and more dangerous Shere Khan. this is another pretty well edited fight, because, you know, with the lightning and the jungle and everything, it's pretty well edited. And again, Clayton, another Disney villain that can never get a break in these tournaments. That has got to be one of the most gruesome death scenes for Disney. And finally we have Dr. Draken versus the Mad Doctor, which this kind of surprised me. Not just because he used a really obscure Disney villain, the Mad Doctor, but it's only round 3 and you're already including television villains. Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, of course. And this fight is kinda well edited. I mean, okay, yeah, the quality, because the Mad Doctor is from a Disney cartoon that came out in, like, the 20s or 30s. Don't exactly know. And Kim Possible is a much newer show that came out in the 21st century. And I did not expect the Mad Doctor to win this fight, because Draken is a popular Disney television villain, and the Mad Doctor is a pretty obscure Disney villain. You know, that's the thing I've noticed about this series, is that the way you start the series, you've pretty much killed off a lot of the very popular Disney villains, and just the war is mostly focused on Disney villains that most people don't think of that much. Which is very interesting. There's nothing bad about it, it's just I find it very interesting. And now we go to the epilogue, and yay, you use Mind Heist. Remember the days when we started using Mind Heist in Disney vs. Non-Disney villains, and all the other tournaments? Those were the good days. I think Bamboo and Women should use Mind Heist at least one more time in their series, in part 2, I'm just saying. Anyway, so Hades arrives at the Forbidden Mountains with his lover, Maleficent. I'm assuming they're a shipment in the series, because, like everyone else, he ships them. At the Palace of Justice, Frollo meets up with all his allies. Wait, Quasimodo, what are you doing here? Yeah, Gaston is there. And Captain Hook, who has survived his fight with Ursula. And Frollo recruits Pete into his faction, which is very interesting, I think. Sister Frollo, you're hiring an anthropomorphic cat. How do you feel about that exactly? And in the underworld, Dr. Facilier is greeted by Nerissa, and they both have an alliance, which lasts throughout this tournament. And Nerissa gives Facilier all of his shadow buddies. Gosh, I love that villain. He is definitely my favorite Disney villain of all time. Probably because he's one of those villains that got that really... It's probably because he's one of those villains that has that really intimidating voice. You know, kind of like Mach. Because it's that voice that makes him so epic and villainous. Alright, now the last round for this commentary. Round 4. Which we start with Sykes versus Edgar. So I can tell we're doing the whole, you know, criminal empire thing in this series. At least I think you are. By the way, nice use of Sykes looking at Edgar through his car window. Not much really to say on this fight, although it's pretty good. And of course, Sykes sends out Rosmo DeSoto to attack Edgar. And Edgar retreats, and I don't think we see Edgar again later on this series. I can't remember, but I don't think we do. At least Sykes actually lasts more than one round, which I did not see coming. And now we have Cruella de Vil versus Madame Medusa. Again, just like with Hades and Facilier, they're two villains that are very similar. But their similarities are so... I mean, they just have so many similarities that they can be great allies or great enemies. Because, I mean, Disney vs. Non-Disney villains and Disney Heroes vs. villains, they were great allies, and here, they're rivals. Because, I mean, they're both maniac drivers, they're both, you know, crazy women. they're both insane, they're both cruel to animals. So yeah, they do have a lot in common. I mean, it's almost as if they probably went to the same school together or something. I could just see something like that happening. Oh gosh, Cruella's got one of the creepiest faces of any Disney villain when she makes that face. And Medusa retreats. Now we have Morgana versus the Evil Manta. So it's Morgana that's got the Trident. And the Evil Manta notices this and wants to be free. And again, we have another Disney villain that's voiced by Tim Curry. I remember watching the Little Mermaid series when I was a kid, and I do remember Evil Manta, although I think I only remember him from a few episodes. And the thing is, in these villain tournaments, Evil Manta just can't get a break. I don't recall him winning a fight ever, I don't think. And I think he does deserve some victory, because I think he's awesome. You know, it's been a while since I've seen The Little Mermaid 2, so I don't remember much of Morgana. I do remember that she's Ursula's sister, and she is voiced by the same actress, so yeah. Right now we have Shere Khan versus Lady Wadham. Again, another surprise fight. You know, I'm surprised Wadham has not yet appeared in Disney vs. Non-Disney villains. I know she only appeared in one episode of the Tarzan series, but I do remember she's Clayton's sister, and I think she should make one appearance in the war. In, you know, Man-Woo's war. You know, like maybe she wants revenge on Zekul Khan for killing her brother. I just think that'd be interesting. And again, this is another example where you had an obscure villain take out a pretty popular Disney villain. Because I thought Shere Khan had a lot more potential, but, you know, story-wise, you have plans for Shere Khan in Part 2. And finally, we have Dr. Doofenshmirtz versus the Phantom Blot. Which, this got me excited, because you probably know by now my love for Phineas and Ferb. By the way, nice use of having the Phantom Blot being Doofenshmirtz's computer. So Doofenshmirtz goes to the Phantom Blot's lair. Yeah, I remember the Phantom Blot from the House of Mouse series, from the different cartoons. So it's neat to see he's there. It's just, you know, I hope Doofenshmirtz gets somewhat of a role in this series. I mean, I definitely hope he gets some part of a role in the Disney vs. Non-Disney series. Because I know a lot of people don't really like him that much, but, you know, he's got fans. You know. And I guess his clumsiness and his curiosity can help him win some fights. I mean, I know he appears again later on in Part 2, and it seems like, from what I've seen so far, he's going to get a larger role, which that would be awesome. At least, I hope he does. Now he gets the epilogue. And Mine Heist again. So at Zurg's tower, they're all, you know, they got the Unimine and they're making, you know, the big gun on top. And Shigo appears and forges an alliance with Zurg. Since Draken is out of the picture, at least for now. Back at Prince John's castle. Apparently Prince John is furious with that Pete is still alive or something. I can't remember what the description said, but he's just... I guess he's hearing about the war and decides to make his move. But yeah, Pete is still around. He gets his group together. And we have Ratcliffe with the colonists, and Captain Hook and his pirates. and Gaston the Angry Villagers again. Basically all the different villain armies and stuff. Back in the Forbidden Mountains, Maleficent and Hades recruit a new member of their alliance, Demona. So yeah, this was Disney Villains round 1 through 4. At this point, it's a really good series, so yeah, I hope you join my commentary, Cole Kefka and everyone else. So yeah, this is CK Final 7, and have a Merry Christmas, everybody.